Hi guys, Kristie here, and I've got Thais joining me. We're going to go through a full body stretch class today. So what we're going to do to start, guys, is get into a little bit of a body limber. So just warm up some of our joints a little bit first. So I'm just going to get Thais to come down onto the floor as a start, and we'll just go through some wrist exercises first. So she's just going to come onto her hands and knees, and then from here, she's just going to fold through the hand, lifting the heel of the hand off the floor and leaving the fingers in contact with the floor. So we're just going to work through about 10 reps of that, just up and down. Heel of the hand lifts up and coming down. We'll just go for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. She's then going to come up to kneeling and just roll off her wrists with some nice big circles. So just interlace her fingers, actually. I'll just get her to, and then rolling off the wrists. All right, so we're going to take the hand the other way. So she's now going to come onto 2 fists with the palms facing in, and then she's just going to gently open to the backs of the hands and then close again. So she's just working through that. We can go one hand at a time, so you don't have to do both hands at the same time. So just open, open, close, close perhaps. When we do this, we want to make sure that the weight is mostly in your knees. So you don't want to load the wrist too heavy necessarily. And we're just open, open, close, close. And then from there, again, she's just going to come up onto her knees, interlacing the fingers one more time and just rolling off the wrists. All right. So from this high kneeling position, guys, we're going to go into some neck carves or some neck circles. So I'm just going to get Thais to form a fist and pull her shoulders down away from her ears. And then from here, she's going to bring her chin towards her chest, rotate the head to the side, take a little side bend, then draw a circle backwards with that head into a side bend, rotation, chin to chest, and then head up. And then you're going to go back the other way. And we're just working through one way and back the other way. And we're going to go for about 60 seconds from now. Okay, so when you do this, you want to make sure that you're working through each of those different positions. So chin to chest, rotation, lateral flexion or your side bend, and then as your head goes back, that is called extension. Now you want to try and make them all one very smooth circle as well, as opposed to segmenting them like I taught it. You want to make it a nice smooth circle all the way around. Now when you do this or any of the other movements, you want to make sure as well that there's no pain. So there's no pinching sensations. If you have a pinching sensation or something that's painful, then we need to work outside the range of pain. Okay, so it means you don't push into that specific range of movement. We're just going to perhaps do one more rep after this. So one more rep around. And then when you finish that rep, we're then going to just come fingers onto the shoulders and we're going to do some nice big circles with the elbows. So Thais is just going to draw the biggest circle she can with her elbows, really squeezing those shoulder blades together and just warming up the shoulder capsule a little bit. So as your elbows come backwards, you retract your shoulder blades through this movement and imagine you're drawing the biggest circle you can with the tip of your elbow. So we're just going to do a couple more of those in that direction and we will change direction in just a moment. So now she's going to change direction back the other way. So again, really squeezing the shoulder blades together, drawing the biggest circle you can. And we'll just do a couple more. Really think about retracting the shoulder blades and pulling those elbows backwards, trying not to arch the back. All right, so finishing the rep that you're on, and now we'll come into a quadruped position, and I'll just get Thais to turn sideways so we can see. We're now going to go through some hip carves from here. So we want to suck our belly button in just a little bit so we're not arching through our lumbar spine. Then her knee is going to pull in towards her elbow. She's going to take that leg out to the side and then start to internally rotate through the hip, bring the knees together, and then reverse. She's going to take that leg back, squeeze her glute, externally rotate and pull that knee back and around towards your elbow. And we have about 60 seconds on each side. So just nice big circles with that knee. So what you're really thinking of doing here is drawing the biggest circle you can with your knee, but you're trying not to compensate through your lower back. So we don't want to arch our lower back as we go through that movement. And you're just going to work one way and then back the other way. So you're working into the capable range of movement at the hip, and we don't want to compensate anywhere else. Now, another common compensation is going to be to bend the elbows. So I just want you to check in with your arms and make sure that both arms are straight and they're pushing through the floor. And you're just going to, again, work one way and then back the other way. We have about 15, 20 seconds left. So when we do these, guys, I'll usually ask you to finish the rep that you're on rather than just stop halfway through a rep. So I all want you to now finish the rep that you're on, all the way back around to the start. And then we're going to change over to the other side. So hands onto the floor, suck the belly button in, and then I'm just going to, again, get you to take a nice big circle, knee towards your elbow, out to the side, and we have 60 seconds. So just working one way and then back the other way. So it is important, before we come into some stronger stretches, it's important to think about warming up those joint capsules a little bit first, all right? So we want to bring a little bit of fluid into the joint and get that tissue moving before we go into any stronger stretches. So again, you're pushing through the floor with straight arms, sucking your belly button gently in, trying not to arch your lumbar spine, and just working from the hip capsule. We have about 30 seconds left. So you may feel like a little bit of a burning in the tissue around the hip, which is okay. That's a good thing. We're just warming up those hips. And we're going to work for another 15, 20 seconds. So that might just look like one more full rep. These aren't fast. They're usually pretty slow. And remember, I like you to finish the rep that you're on in full. All right, so let's finish the rep that you're on, back and around to the start. And then in this quadruped position, we're going to go into some cat-cow. So I'm going to get Thais to tuck her tail and round through her spine. She's then going to do the opposite. So she's going to anteriorly tilt her pelvis, look up towards the ceiling, and press her ribcage down towards the floor. Now, just fairly freely moving through this. It doesn't need to be super slow. You're just going to work through some cat-cow, rounding through the back, and then arching your back and gently pressing your ribcage down towards the floor. Now, when you do this, you might want to work through the breathing as well. So you take a breath in as you look up towards the sky, and you exhale as you round through the spine. And just do a couple more of those. It's always a good idea just to warm our spine through a little bit of flexion and extension before we move into some stronger stretches. So I'll just get you to work for another 10 or 15 seconds here, guys. For you, that might just look like 1 or 2 more reps. It doesn't need to be loads. Last 5. So let's finish the rep that we're on. And then again, in this quadruped position, I'm going to get Thais to draw some circles with her ankles. So she's just drawing some nice big ankle circles, both feet at the same time. So we'll just circle the ankles around. So she's just pointing her toes and pulling the toes back towards the shin and just drawing a nice big circle there with the toes. And then we're going to change direction back the other way. So we're just drawing a big circle around. And in just a moment, I'm going to get you to work through some plantar and dorsiflexion just by tucking your toe and then untucking your toe and sitting back onto your heels. So we're just going to stretch out the bottom of the feet a little bit as well. All right, so I'm just going to get Thais now to tuck her toes under. She's just going to sit back onto her big toe. When we do that, you want to try and keep the heels together as best you can. So you don't want your feet to splay open. And then she's just going to untuck her toes, sit onto the top of the feet, and then go back to toes tucked under. So you can just stick with this. If you want a stronger stretch, you can lift your knees off the floor when you're on the top of the foot. So we're here, and then when we go to the top of the foot, we can lift the knees off the floor, okay? And just a couple of alternating through that, rounds of alternating through that. Lifting perhaps the knees up, stretching the bottom of the foot. Just go last 10 seconds here. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, stopping there. Well done, guys. All right, so our last, what I would regard as kind of a limber, is just going to be to come into a frog position. We will limber, and then we will go into a stretch in that position, okay? So what Thais is going to do is she's going to take her feet knees nice and wide, all right? She's going to take ankles in line with the knee. So if I have a look here from behind, she has a right angle at the knee, okay? Ankles are in line and the toes are pulling back towards her shin. Now, it's up to you guys. You can place elbows down onto the floor, and most people will find this more comfortable, and she's just going to gently rock forwards and backwards, okay? So ankles are in line with the knees, and she's just gently rocking forwards and back. And we're just going to work here limbering for a little bit, and then I'm going to get you to do a stronger stretch with some contractions in this position, okay? So what we can also do here is a little bit of a loose, I suppose you would say, internal rotation at the hip, okay? So what that looks like is Thais can push her right hip down and lift her foot up. So as she rocks forwards, she pushes her hip down, lifts her foot up, then she gently presses back and then over to the other side. Now, guys, Thais is pregnant, so I'm going to get her just to work into a range of movement that she is comfortable with. However, you guys might like to lift that foot really high. It depends on your flexibility, okay? She's still lifting higher than most people would. So we're just going to work in and out of that position a couple of times. Again, just limbering there through those hips. All right, so let's finish the limber we're on, and now just settle your hips back in line with your knees, okay? So I need you to now be in that stretch, but it's a static stretch, okay? Now, I know this feels like quite a long time. That's okay. Now, if you would like to increase this stretch, you can scoop your hand under your knee and slide your knee open, and Thais is just doing a little example of that there, okay? We're now going to do a contraction, and what that looks like is we're going to squeeze our knees through the floor, and then we're going to stop, and we're going to use our hands again to open the knees up. And we're going to do that a couple of times, all right? So I would suggest as well that when you're in this position, the floor is soft, okay? So if you don't have a soft floor, a couple of pillows, one either side, is going to be helpful, all right? So here, we're just going to take a nice deep breath in. You can squeeze your upper body, and we're going to squeeze the knees through the floor for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a breath, and if you want to open the stretch up a little bit more, then use your hand and scoop your knees open. And we're going to go another round of these contractions. All right, so getting ready, take a breath, and let's squeeze your knees through the floor for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, pausing there, guys, maybe open the knees up a little bit more. We'll just have about 10 seconds breathing into this position. Last 3, 2, and 1. Now to come out of here, you can slide forwards and maybe bring your knees together, or maybe you just want to push through the hands and bring your knees together. Now press back through child's pose in this position, and just take a couple of breaths here after that stretching child's pose into the lower back. All right, so we're going to now work a 90-90 position, which is going to stretch out glute and piriformis, okay? So if you are quite flexible, you may want to come into a full pigeon pose. So for those who know what that is, you could do the same stretch, but in full pigeon, all right? I like to work from 90 here because it's more accessible for most of us. So what Thais has done is she's put her front knee directly in front of her hip. She has a right angle at the knee. Back knee is in line with this back hip, and again, she's got a right angle here at this back leg, all right? She's going to rotate her torso in the direction of the front leg, fingertips onto the floor. She's just going to pull her chest forwards and find a stretch now into her right butt cheek, essentially, so her right hip, yeah? And we're just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths in that position. So we're just breathing here into that stretch. So like I said, if you're quite flexible, you may come into full pigeon pose where this back leg is straightened out behind you. If you're very, very tight in this position, you may place a yoga block or a pillow underneath this front hip here, okay? And that can help us to sit in a better, more comfortable position. And now what we should be feeling is a stretch on the outside of the front leg, of the butt cheek of the front leg, yeah? All right, so take another couple of breaths here. What we're going to do is a contraction, and that involves you pushing your front foot down and forwards through the floor. So it's like you're trying to kick your foot away from you through the floor, all right? So let's take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, pull yourself into a deeper stretch. And then we're going to squeeze the front leg and push the front foot down and forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9. So really try and kick that foot away from you through the floor. Last 5, 4, 3, 2. Pause, take a breath. And draw yourself a little deeper into that stretch. We are going to do one more contraction. So again, you're going to squeeze your front leg. Let's push the front foot down and forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a nice deep breath in, and again, increasing that stretch by drawing the forehead forwards. Last 10 seconds, just breathing here. I know these stretches feel like quite a long time. We need to spend time in the stretches rather than rushing through them. All right, and then we're going to slowly lift our chest up. Now, you might want to come to high kneeling or standing and just do a couple of hip circles before we change over to the other side. So you can stand up, or maybe you just want to go to kneeling and just circling off the hips. All right, so guys, let's set ourselves up when you're ready on the other side. So again, we're going to 90-90, all right? So we want to have a right angle here at this front knee. We want to have a right angle at the back knee. If you are quite flexible, come into full pigeon pose where the back leg straightens out behind. If you are quite tight, pop something underneath the front hip like a yoga block or a pillow, okay? And then from here, take a nice deep breath in and just start to draw yourself forwards into the stretch. So your forehead is pulling forwards and you're finding a stretch into the outside of the front hip. So I always like to imagine that there's a brick wall in front of you and it's just out of reach and you're trying to put your head onto the wall. So you're moving forwards rather than just rounding your back and sort of rounding over that front leg. And just take a couple of nice deep breaths in this position, searching for that stretch into gluten piriformis of the front leg. So again, in a moment, guys, we will be doing the contraction where you're going to squeeze your front leg and push the foot down and forwards through the floor, okay? So let's just take a nice deep breath in. As you exhale, draw yourself a little deeper into the stretch. And then the front foot, we're going to squeeze and we're going to push it through the floor. Getting ready, and off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause, take a breath. Increase the stretch by pulling your head forwards. All right, and we're going to go again, guys. So let's squeeze that front leg and push your front foot down and forwards. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a breath. Draw yourself a little deeper. That imaginary brick wall in front of you, you're pulling your forehead forwards into that position, softening into that stretch as you exhale. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and slowly coming up. All right, so guys, from there, let's stand up perhaps, circle the hips off a couple of times. So we're just going to do perhaps a little bit of a limber through our hamstrings just before we come into a stronger hamstring stretch, okay? So what that looks like, and I'm just going to grab a yoga block quickly, guys. I should have got this before. What that looks like is Trace is going to take her ball of her foot up onto the yoga block like this, okay? So I'll just get her to come into that position. And she's just going to so she's got her left foot up onto the yoga block. Now, if you don't have a yoga block, you could just literally pull the toes up without having anything underneath that. That's fine as well, okay? She's going to take her left hand behind her head, her neck, sorry, and she's just going to bring her elbow down gently towards her toe. This stretching leg can be a little bit soft, so she doesn't need to lock that out. And now she's going to imagine that she's putting this elbow onto the toe, and she's just going to do some gentle pulses into that position. So she's just gently limbering up and down and finding a little bit of a stretch through that hamstring and calf. So with the toe elevated like that, your calf is probably stretching fairly strongly as well. So rather than thinking, oh, I'm isolating this into my hamstring, just think about lengthening through that entire posterior chain of the back leg, okay? Gently drawing down, and it doesn't need to be super strong. We are going to come into a stronger hamstring stretch in just a moment, okay? So I just want you to pulse here for another 10 seconds or so, remembering to breathe. It's not a bounce, it's quite a controlled, gentle pulse into that stretch, just up and down. Let's wake up our hamstrings and calves a little bit. All right, so let's finish the pulse that you're on. Draw yourself up, and then we're going to go over to the other side. So she's again placing the ball of the foot onto the yoga block, softening that knee, same side hand behind the neck, and then she's just gently drawing herself down into a single leg hamstring stretch here. Now, it is very gentle. You don't need to take this too strongly. You will be noticing that calf stretch as well. And we're just drawing up and down. So like I said, we are going to be moving into a stronger hamstring stretch in a moment. When we come to the hamstring stretch, guys, I am actually going to get Thais to demonstrate facing the camera with some sticks. However, I'll show you that it actually could be done against a wall. Just for you guys to see, we'll be facing the camera, but I'll show you how you could use a wall as well. All right, so let's just last 10 seconds in this position. All right, so let's draw up and out of there. All right, so guys, we are going to set up facing you with these sticks for our support, okay? But what you could do, and Thais just quickly demoed at the wall, is actually come to the wall, down onto your knees. So ball of the foot up against the wall. So this is what it would look like if you're at home and you're using a wall space, okay? It's just a little bit hard for you to see with her back to the camera, okay? So imagine that she was at the wall. She's just now going to face you, all right? So we're going to be doing two different things in this position. So imagine the sticks for Thais at the wall, all right? So in this position, guys, we're first going to have what I would call a straight hamstring stretch. So just take a little bit of a moment to watch before we get into that. So at the moment, she's in a straight hamstring stretch, okay? We're just going to breathe passively here. I'll talk you through it. Before we change to the other side, she's then going to come into an outer hamstring stretch. So we're going to bring this leg across. I'll be talking about the hips. And now the stretch has shifted to the outside of the leg. It's in this position that we are going to do a contraction, okay? I'm going to ask everyone to stretch the same side first, so the cueing makes sense, because I'll say left and right, all right? So let's all go left hamstring first, all right? So let's all come into that position, fingertips up onto the wall, ball of the foot up onto the wall. You may want something soft underneath your knee, your back knee, okay? So a couple of things to notice, guys. Back knee is directly underneath the back hip in this position. Your front leg or your stretching leg can be a little bit soft. You do not need to lock that leg out straight, okay? So now what you're going to do is square your hips, pulling that back hip forwards, and just move your forehead forwards into this position. So as the forehead moves forwards towards the wall, you're going to increase the stretch into your hamstring. And I just want you to breathe into that position, okay? So you're just taking some nice deep breaths in, and as you exhale, you're just moving forwards gently into that stretch. So like I said, guys, we are going to, Thais is going to get rid of the sticks, which is fine as well, okay? Like I said, we are just going to breathe passively into this straight hamstring stretch. We will do our contracting in the outer hamstring stretch. So again, just a couple more breaths here. Now, if you have any lower back issues, you may really want to focus on keeping that front leg a little bit bent, okay? You don't necessarily have to lock your front leg out straight. All right, so let's just take maybe one more breath, and then I'm going to get you to back out of that stretch and transition to the outer hamstring, all right? So let's just come out of the stretch a little bit. Move your left foot now across in front of your right knee. So your left foot has moved maybe 4 to 5 inches to the right. you're going to square your right hip forwards. So now you are going to notice that the stretch has shifted to the outside of the left leg a little bit. And I just want you to take some breaths in that position, all right? So if you are quite flexible through the hamstrings, you may want to bring your right shoulder across over the left leg. So there's a slight rotation as well that's going to increase that stretch down the left-hand side of the leg. So here we're going to do our contractions, which is going to involve you pushing your front foot, your left foot down and to the left through the floor. So it's like you're sweeping your legs sideways through the floor. Okay, so getting ready, let's take a nice deep breath in and let's push that foot down and sweep it to the left for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a nice deep breath in and move your forehead forwards. All right, we're going to do one more of those. I know this feels like ages, guys. Let's press that foot down into the left for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, move the head forwards. All right, and then finishing the round of breath that you're on, you're going to slowly bend your front knee. And guys, what I'm going to get you to do is just stand up for a moment. Just take a little break before we move over to the other side. So stand up, do a couple of hip circles, maybe grab yourself a quick drink, and then we're going to move over to the other side. Dan, if you just want to switch that. That's good. All right, guys, so let's set ourselves up for our hamstring stretch. I'll just start that again because you're in the camera then, Dan. All right, guys, let's set ourselves up for that hamstring stretch on the other side, all right? So we're going to remember go straight hamstring to start with. So I've just got Thais got her right foot up against the wall. Imagine there's an imaginary wall there. And this left knee is directly underneath the left hip. So the hip position is quite important. Remember, you want to square the hips forwards in this stretch. Now we're just taking some nice deep breaths in. No contracting here, just breathing into that passive stretch. Now, don't forget that we want to have a little bend for most of us into that front leg, all right? So you can still get a really good hamstring stretch by with a bent front knee. And just take some nice deep inhales, exhales. If you are quite flexible, what you might want to do, and I should have said this on the other side, but is to anteriorly tilt your pelvis in this position as well. And we'll just take some nice deep breaths in and just draw your forehead forwards into that stretch. So if you have, like I said, any lower back issues, you probably just want to take the hamstring stretches a little bit easy. You don't need to make them too intense. We will be contracting in the outer hamstring stretch, but let's just breathe through another 10 seconds or so on this side. Remember, when we do the outer hamstring, guys, I ask you to slightly back out before we transition, all right? So let's finish the round of breath you're on, and then I'll get you to slowly come out of that position a little bit and move your right foot across in front of your left knee. All right, so then we want to pull the left hip forward, squaring the hips, and you should have noticed a fairly distinct shift in the stretch now to the outside of the right leg. So in this position again, if you want to increase that stretch, rotating slightly so the left shoulder can come across over the right leg, and that should increase the stretch even more. It can be a little bit too much for some, all right? So let's just breathe there into that outer hamstring stretch. All right, so from here, guys, we are going to do our contraction in a moment, which is going to be for you to push your front leg down and to the right through the floor. So it's like a sweeping sideways action, all right? So getting ready, let's take a nice deep breath in, and then let's just press that foot down and to the right for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop, take a breath. Move your forehead towards that imaginary wall. So you're always lengthening out of the hips as opposed to rounding over the leg. We've got one more contraction, guys. So let's squeeze the leg and push it down and to the right for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a breath. And move yourself a little deeper now into that stretch. You've got last 5 or 10 seconds here, just breathing in that position. And then when you come out, guys, let's just bend your knee a little and then slowly shift yourself out of that stretch. And again, you might want to stand up. You might want to do a couple little circles off with the hips. All right, so in full body stretch, I really like to broadly hit things from all different angles. So we have done our adductors, we've done glute piriformis, we've done hamstring. We are now just going to do some hip extension, all right? So we're going to need a wall space, and it's going to look like a hip flexor stretch. However, it does stretch your quads out at the same time. So Thais are facing away from the wall and ball of the foot. Oh, yeah. So Thais is going to come into this position, guys. She's going to step 1 foot up. Now, there's a couple of options here. Let's go just hip flexor, not quad. So Thais is just going to come straight into what we would call a hip flexor stretch. However, if you're in this position, guys, and you're getting a quad stretch, that's okay. All right. So what I'll get her to do is tuck the toes under so the ball of the foot is on the wall. She has her back knee fairly far from the wall. Now, you could use a couch or you could use a wall, all right? Her front foot is slightly ahead of the front knee. And in this position, you can place your hands to the floor on the inside of the front foot. I'm going to give you a couple of options. Hands to the floor on the inside of the front foot. You may want to place your hands onto a couple of yoga blocks. So I'm going to grab her one more yoga block actually for that. Or the other alternative here in this position would just be to have a chair or a bench and you're resting your elbows onto it. Okay, so there are options in this position. So we're not in that quad stretch where your butt is right up against the wall, but instead there's quite a bit of distance here and this back hip is opening down towards the floor. All right, so what I'm going to get all of you to do and Thais to do is take a really nice deep breath into your belly. And as you exhale, gently squeeze the glute on this back hip and push your hip towards the floor. So we're just breathing into a stretch here. Now we are going to do some contracting in this position. The 2 different contractions are going to look like. The first one, the back knee is going to pull forwards towards your chest. So imagine you're trying to pull your back knee through the floor. The second one, you're going to try and push the wall or the couch over with your back foot. All right, so let's just take one more nice deep inhale, exhale in that position, sinking your back hip down towards the floor. Now, without letting your hips lift up, I want you to drag your back knee forwards towards your chest for 10. Really try and pull it through the floor. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale again, sink your hip towards the floor, perhaps squeezing your butt cheek on that side to push your hip down even further. Really try and relax the muscles in your belly when you do this. The second contraction, you're going to push the wall over with your foot. So you're really pushing back with the heel, or the ball of the foot, sorry, into the wall. So getting ready and push the wall down. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause, take a breath, and as you breathe out, really allow that back hip to open into extension and sink down towards the floor. And we're just going to do another 10 or 15 seconds. So that just might be 1 to 2 more breaths in this position. Really opening the back hip up. When we spend a lot of time sat at a desk, we are in hip flexion. We actually need to go the other way and allow those hips to open. All right, so to come out of this position, you slowly shift your hips backwards away from that front leg. And then you might want to come to high kneeling and just circle off the hips. So this stretch can be really strong for some of us. So just take a moment in between, do a few circles off from kneeling of the hips. Perhaps you want to press back through child's pose and just stretch out your lower back a little bit. And when you're ready, we are going to set that stretch up on the other side. So ball of the foot is on the wall. Now, again, listen carefully to the setup here. The ball of the foot's on the wall. There's a fair distance of the knee from the wall for most people, okay? Your front foot is directly underneath or slightly ahead of your front knee, but not behind it, all right? Your back hip is sinking down and your hands are to the inside of the front foot. Elevating the hands up into a couple of yoga blocks, maybe have your elbows on a bench or a chair, and you're just breathing into the stretch. So again, guys, we want to spend time. I know I kind of go on and you're probably wanting the stretch to be over, but we do need to spend time in these positions, a couple of minutes in each of the stretches at least, yeah? So let's just take a few more nice deep breaths in. Breathe into your belly, and as you exhale, just sink your back hip down towards the floor. All right, we're just going to work through perhaps one more breath there before we do our first contraction. The first one's going to be to pull your back knee forwards through the floor. So getting ready, and off we go. Let's drag your knee through the floor towards your chest for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a nice deep breath in. And exhale, sink that back hip down. All right, second contraction, you're going to push the wall over. So off we go. Let's press back for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take an inhale. Exhale, sinking down. And we'll just have our last, say, 10 to 15 seconds just breathing into this stretch and just allowing your back hip to open. So really try and let go of tension in the belly as you breathe out. All right, guys, and then let's just very slowly tilt your hips back. And then standing up, and we're just going to, again, circle off the hips a couple of times. All right, so guys, we're going to move to some upper body stretches and some spine stuff to finish off. So what I'm going to get you to do to start with, and a little bit like we limbered our hamstrings first, we're going to limber a little in shoulder extension and then have a little bit of a stronger passive stretch in shoulder extension. So I'm going to get Thais to come down, sitting on the floor on her bum. And I might get her to go side on. She's going to do some table rocks here, all right? So she's going to take fingers out to the side or facing backwards, and we're just going to lift through the hips and be doing what we call a table rock, where we lift our hips up and then coming back down. We're then going to have a little bit of a stronger stretch in shoulder extension passively, okay? So if we all just come into this position, now just have a quick look here. Her fingers are facing sideways. You could turn your fingers to face back, okay? So getting ready. Let's work for 45 seconds, guys, just lifting up and down on your own. So she's just going to lift her hips up and then come back down, all right? So as she lifts her hips, she rolls her shoulders back, squeezes the shoulder blades together, and you might just ease yourself into this, just getting the hips a little bit higher each time. When your hips lift up, you want to look at the ceiling. So you want to look up as your hips lift up, as opposed to looking down towards your knees. And we're just going to work our way through another 15, 20 seconds like that. You want to remember to breathe here, guys. So just nice, relaxed breathing, just easing yourself into that shoulder extension. All right, so let's finish the rep you're on. Bring your bum back to the floor, but leave your hands where they are. And now from here, I want Thais to roll her shoulders back and feel like she's opening her chest. And she's just going to very slowly walk her bum away from her hands. So she's just going to take the bum further and further away. Now she adjusted her hands there to go fingers facing back and hands a little bit closer together. So Thais has very good shoulder extension. Not all of you are going to look like this. hands, all right? So now I just want you to find this stretch through the shoulders. Keep opening and lifting your sternum up towards the sky and just breathe into this position. So we're not going to do any contracting here. We're just going to breathe in shoulder extension, okay? So if you're quite tight, your hands will be fairly close to your bum and they might be a little bit wider, okay? If you're quite flexible, your hands will be closer together and your bum will be further away from your hands, and literally just breathing into this position. Now, we've got about just over 30 seconds left here. So what you might find is that after a breath or two, you can actually just inch your butt a little further away from your hands. Maybe you can inch your hands a little bit closer together, and you're just breathing there. A couple more rounds of breath, guys. We've got 20 seconds left. So just allowing those pecs and that chest to open up and stretch. You may notice some stretch into your bicep and to your elbow slightly as well, but it shouldn't be super painful. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's slowly make our way out of that position, and you're just going to roll your shoulders off a couple of times. All right, so guys, I'm just going to explain the next stretch, and then because it's a little bit perhaps hard to see what Thais is going to be doing, but basically I'm going to get her to come to a wall space. So you'll need to find a wall space, and she's going to have her hand basically like this on the wall on 45 degrees, pushing this shoulder forwards into a stretch. The contraction that she does is going to be like a sweeping through the wall action. So kind of like on a 45-degree angle. Okay, so I'm going to get her to come into this position and then I'll talk you through it. So maybe we all do the same side first. So actually she doesn't need to be touching the wall. She can move out from the wall. Her hand is on the wall here and her arm is essentially on 45 degrees. Now, if this is too intense into your elbow, just bend your elbow slightly in that position, okay? She can choose what she wants to do. Now, her right hand is on the wall and she's pushing her right shoulder forwards and pulling the left shoulder back. So there's a sensation of really opening up the chest here, okay? So I need you to find that stretch. So remember the angle, guys. We've got 45 degrees with the arm. You have a slight unlock of the elbow, especially if you're getting any elbow pain in that position, okay? It shouldn't be nervy or painful. And then from here, we'll just take a few nice deep breaths in, and I want you to feel as though the breath is opening up your chest, okay? So the breath in itself is increasing the stretch. Now, the contraction in a moment is going to be to sweep that arm through the wall on 45 degrees. Obviously, the hand's not going to go anywhere. The wall's in the way. So let's just take a nice deep breath in, and then let's press your arm through the wall for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause, take a breath in, and maybe pull that outside shoulder slightly back and open the chest. We are just going to do one more of those. So getting ready, and again, gently sweeping through the wall for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, pause, perhaps open up that shoulder a little bit more. And then very slowly finish that breath and come out of that position. Now you may feel like your hand kind of went to sleep. So shake your hand off, roll the shoulder a couple of times perhaps. And then we're going to change over when you're ready to the other side, guys. So finding that wall space, she's got her hands now up onto 45 degrees. Remember, we can unlock the elbow, especially if there's anything going on here at the elbow. It shouldn't be painful then, all right? So let's just start by taking some nice deep breaths into that position. So Thais has got her left hand on the wall. Her left shoulder is pushing forwards to open the chest. Her right shoulder pulls back. And so she's using her breath to increase the stretch and open that anterior line here. So breathing into it. Now, the stretch can be experienced really anywhere that you're tight on this line. So some of you may even get something in the forearm, bicep, chest, front or anterior part of the shoulder. There's a lot of things that can be stretching here, all right? So let's just again take maybe 1 or 2 more breaths in, and then that contraction is going to be to sweep your arm through the wall down on a downward line. All right? So getting ready, let's take a breath and push through the wall. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take an inhale. And exhale, open the chest up. We're going to do 1 more of those. Now, the contraction doesn't need to be super intense, guys. Getting ready. And off we go. Press through the wall for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, breathing into that stretch, opening up the chest. Last 10 seconds or so. All right, now very slowly come out, and again rolling off the shoulder, maybe shaking off the wrist or rolling off the hand, and just finishing there. All right, so guys, we're going to make our way down onto the floor now. We're going to go through a little sequence of a tricep stretch into a lateral flexion of our spine into a rotation on each side. So we'll do all of those on one side and then all of them on the other side as well, okay? So get Thais to sit onto the floor. Now, we're going to start probably in a cross-legged position. Now, if you struggle to sit cross-legged, you might want to sit onto a yoga block, okay? So some of us are going to find that this is going to be more comfortable, all right? So what I'm going to get Thais to do is now she's going to go maybe left arm up, and she's going to go into a, what side did you do first there? Choose a side. I'll get her to choose a side. All right, so we're going to go into a tricep stretch. Now, so she's got her left arm up, and she's folding her left hand to the same side shoulder. She's going to take her right hand, hold the elbow, but she's going to use her thumb on the right hand to push. So if I don't know, maybe I should quickly show you here. I'm actually going to, if I show you here, guys, use the thumb to push this hand across, okay, to the same side shoulder, all right? It's an important little detail just to get a better tricep stretch. No, it's all right. You can do it here. All right, so guys, she's just using her thumb on the top hand to push the hand across to the shoulder, okay? So now we're getting a stretch onto the tricep. Now, we want to try and suck our rib cage in a little bit, so we're not just arching our back in this position, okay? You're just going to take some nice deep breaths into that tricep stretch. Now, for those who are quite flexible, it can be challenging to get a decent tricep stretch on your own. So what you want to think about doing is pulling the elbow backwards, moving it across towards the center line, and then pressing down, okay? And you're really trying to search for this stretch here. And we're just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths into that. Now, some of you might like to take what I call a limber, where in this position you do like a little side bend and you push your armpit out to the side, and you start to increase the stretch down through this tissue here on the outside of the armpit and around the rotator cuff muscles as well. So you can kind of move in and out of that and essentially explore this position, okay? So it becomes more than just a tricep stretch. And I just want you to work into that, in and out of there a few times, breathing into that stretch. All right, so last 10 seconds here, guys. We're going to then go on the same side straight into a lateral flexion of the spine in this cross-legged position, all right? So I'll get Thais and all of you just to release that grip. You may want to roll that shoulder a couple of times. All right, and now you may want to either come down to the floor because you want to reach the floor. She's going to take a lateral flexion. So she's basically putting her right elbow down and reaching this left hand up and over. Now, she's quite flexible here, guys. Some of you might find that you need to pop a yoga block perhaps underneath the elbow like this, or maybe you have the hand rather than the elbow on the floor, and it's up to you, all right? So you can choose which position is best for you. Essentially, we're getting a lateral flexion of the spine, and you're also stretching all this tissue down around the hip and the lower back as well, okay? So a couple of things to note in this position, guys, is try not to let this hip lift off the floor. So I want to keep, she's anchoring down through the left hip, And on this top hand, she's really reaching. So you might want to even open the hand and lengthen the fingertips. So imagine you're creating as much space from fingertips to hip as possible up on this line of the body, okay? Now, in this position, she can now gently roll her chest a little forwards and a little back, and she's really searching for the best position for a stretch, okay? So you might find that a certain position increases the stretch, and that's where I want you to pause and just take some nice deep breaths in this lateral flexion. So pause in the stretch where it gives you, where you find the best stretch, I should say, and just breathe there. And always imagine you're creating as much length as possible. So we're just going to breathe, last 10. In that stretch, some of you will be getting QL, which is down near the lower back, which is great. Some of you might be getting lats. Last 3, 2, and 1. We'll slowly come out of there. All right, again, that top shoulder, you might want to roll it off because we're going to now use the same arm again, okay? So I'm going to get Thais to straighten out the legs. So she's going to straighten her legs out. And she had her left side stretching. So now she's going to bend her right foot and put it to the outside of the left knee. So she bend this leg up and place it here. And now she's going to reach up nice and tall and drop this elbow to the outside of the knee. Okay, so we're just going to come now into a rotation. So you should have opposite knee to elbow. So please just check that you've done opposite knee to elbow. Now, some of you might have done the other side to Thais, so I'm not going to tell you left or right, but just check that you've got opposite knee, yeah? And I just want you to breathe into that position. So as you inhale, you lengthen up through the top of the head. So we're creating length through the spine. And as you exhale, you look over the back shoulder, you pull your back shoulder back. You can lever off this elbow and increase that stretch a little. And we're just going to take a couple more breaths here, last say 20, 30 seconds, just breathing into that rotation. So as you breathe, you may notice in this upper back, your thoracic and mid back, you may notice some kind of strange stretches just with the breath alone. We're going to finish last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly unravel yourself from there. Take your legs out in front. All right, guys, we're going to do that sequence on the other side. So Thais is going to sit back onto her yoga block for her tricep stretch. Cross-legged position, I think, is comfortable for most of us there. If you're not comfortable here, guys, you may just find you need to come to a kneeling position. And again, she's folding this hand to the same side shoulder, and the assisting thumb is pushing that hand across to the same side shoulder. All right, and now her elbow draws backwards across and presses down. And just take some nice deep breaths into that stretch. Now remember as well, we try not to arch the back. So that's just a little escape of the stretch. So you kind of want to pull your rib cage down slightly. And we're just searching for a stretch into the tricep. Now I totally appreciate that if you're quite flexible, finding a tricep stretch on your own can be quite hard. So I don't be too worried about that. Now, Thais is going to limber in and out of that position again. So now, right now, she's pushing her right armpit sideways and taking like a mini side bend. And what she'll notice is she gets a little bit of a stretch in the tissue around the armpit. So it's a little bit of rotator cuff, a little bit of lats, tricep is still stretching, and we're just limbering, exploring the body a little bit here. So I want you to just work through that limber, maybe another 10 seconds before we transition ourselves to our lateral flexion. So maybe as well, just settle back into the tricep stretch if that feels good for you, and just breathe, do one last breath. All right, and then let's slowly come out of there. Roll that shoulder off a couple of times. All right, guys, we're going to just set up for our lateral flexion. So from there, guys, I just want you to come into that elbow to the floor, into that side bend, and you're just reaching up and over and just taking a nice deep breath in, creating as much length down through the side of the body as you can. And remember, we're trying to anchor the hip and lengthen the fingertips. And then you're just gently rolling your shoulder forwards and backwards. So you're just finding and exploring down through the side of the body. And then I just want you to pause there in the position that gives you the best stretch and take a really nice deep inhale. And exhale, reach as much as you can out of that top hand. So some of you might notice you get a stretch down through the QL. Remember, we're creating as much length from fingertips to hip as possible. Last 10. All right, and then let's slowly lift up. Give yourself a moment, just roll the shoulder off a couple of times. And we're just going to go finish with our rotation. So legs out in front. You're going to now take the, so we're going to take the opposite, So take the opposite knee up, and then we're going opposite knee to elbow, guys. So remember, we want to lengthen up through the top of the head, breathing in. And as you exhale, you're rotating by levering off this elbow here. So we're really using the elbow on the knee to increase that rotation. Look over the back shoulder. And it's on the in-breath that we want that length up through the spine. So you want to think about lengthening up and then rotating. And we're just going to have another 30 or 40 seconds here. And after this, guys, we'll pretty much be done. So we're just breathing into that. Really using your elbow to increase that rotation. If you want to go a little bit harder, you've got last 15 or so seconds left. Perhaps one more breath here. So full inhale, exhale, increase. And then very slowly coming out of there, guys. And just making your way to child's pose to finish off, and just taking a couple of nice deep breaths in child's pose to finish off. So knees are wide, bum presses back onto the heels, and just lengthening your arms forwards and pressing your chest down towards the floor. Couple of nice deep breaths here, and then once you've done that, guys, we are finished for today. Thank you so much, and thank you, Stace. Awesome work. Bye. That's good. Thank you, Kristie.